Welcome to Talmudic Treasures. Today we're learning Sotah, page 33, which discusses when it comes to certain ceremonies, is it necessary when one needs to speak? Does it need to be in the original language? Must it actually be done in Hebrew or Lashon HaKodesh? Or can one really speak in any language? So one of the situations which is brought, one of the cases, is prayer. Is it necessary, as we have prayer books which are written in Lashon HaKodesh, is it necessary that when we pray that it must be done in that language? Now, most of our prayer books also have English translations, or for those of other languages, it's translated into other languages. The question is, are you allowed to pray in a different language? On this, the Talmud says, yes, it's not a problem. You are allowed to pray in any language. And the reason is because the purpose of prayer is not just to say these words, but it's in order to be able to express yourself. It's supposed to be an emotional experience, a prayer that comes from the heart. And therefore, if the only way that you could truly understand and to be able to express yourself is, for example, in English, then you could pray in English. However, if a person does have the ability to speak and to pray in Hebrew and understand what they're saying, then certainly speaking and praying in the original language is best. But the Talmud actually says this is not so clear, because when it comes to praying, there's also a situation where the angels, the Malchei Shares, will intervene and they'll be able to direct our prayers toward God, which is an interesting phenomenon. We don't pray to the angels, but the angels have some ability to be able to cause our prayers to be more readily accessible and available for God, and for therefore our prayers to be answered. However, there is a language that cannot be spoken by angels, which is the language of Aram, Lashon Arami, which for another discussion why that particular language. But therefore it leads to the question, is it necessary, therefore, that just like they don't speak that language, they are actually going to require for your prayers to be intervened, to be able to direct them toward God, that you will actually need to pray in Hebrew? On this, the Talmud gives us an unbelievable answer. The answer is it depends. If you're praying by yourself, your prayers are not as strong, and therefore you need the angels to be able to intervene. And therefore, you really should pray, if you're able to, in Hebrew. But if you go to a synagogue and you're part of a congregation, and you pray as a group, as a tzibor, then you could pray in any language. And it's not necessary. Even if the angels don't understand what you're saying, you don't need the angels, because you have a direct line, a direct connection to God. Once we form a congregation, those prayers become extremely, extremely powerful. Because instead of hearing one particular prayer, all these prayers are considered to be connected as one, which is why it's also explained that when you pray by yourself, then the question is this person worthy for their prayers to be answered? However, if you pray as a group, no longer is it so discernible the individual, but rather we look at you as a collective whole. And therefore, even if the individual on their own is not righteous, is not perfect, but together as a group, all of a sudden it takes upon a completely new meaning. And therefore, this is one of the many places that we see why it's so important as part of Jewish practice, not just to pray, but also to pray in a synagogue with a congregation, that we're not an island, but rather when we come together as a community, then our prayers are more readily answered.